that I'm being asked to support.
Mr. David Davis.
Speaker, I agree entirely with the excellent speeches of my honourable and gallant friend, the member for Billericay, Basil Billericay, and the chairman of the Defence Select Committee. Both of them made very eloquent speeches, and I can therefore just focus not on the high principle but on the practicalities of this. And I'll start from the Prime Minister's point at the beginning when he said all members of this House on all sides want to see the end of ISIS. Therefore, we are not talking about the aim, we're simply talking about the practical method of going about it. And the House, I think, all the House can agree with 90% of the motion in front of us. The contentious part is solely the issue of bombing, of whether or not we should engage in the bombing. Now, what's being proposed is entirely understandable for symbolic, and that's not a small word, for important symbolic reasons, to add a small number of British fast jets to the American-led air campaign in Syria and Iraq. But I think we should just face some facts. That air campaign has so far amounted in both countries to about 10,000 sorties, a third in Syria, against 16,000 targets. The avowed aim? To degrade ISIS or Daesh. The outcome? In the period in which the campaign has been operating, the recruitment for Daesh has doubled, from 15,000 to 30,000 personnel, and by a macabre coincidence, one extra recruit for every target we destroyed. So from that point of view, it is not achieving the aim intended. It's doing some good things. The radical lady, the ex-foreign secretary, is not here, but she talked about Kobane. It's pinning them down from time to time. But it's not achieving what we intended. Indeed, arguably, it's achieving the opposite. Last week, the greatest modern warrior, the ex-Special Forces, American Special Forces Commander, General Stanley McChrystal, was in the House. And I spoke to him, and one of the things he said, in terms, was, and he's talking about drones principally, aerial warfare. He said, never believe in this sort of war you can cut off the head of the snake. It always regenerates. It always reorganises. It's the wrong metaphor for this sort of warfare. So this doesn't work on any level. The other point that leaps out to me is that it's debatable. I've heard arguments from knowledgeable colleagues. It's debatable whether, no matter how skillful and how brave our pilots will be, and they will be both, no matter how skillful and brave they are, it's debatable whether they will make any difference at all, not even a marginal difference. And the reason is that there are a large number of aircraft available on all sorts of weapon systems, including Brimstone, including things that compete and may be better than Brimstone, but they're all there. Not in this moment, in a second. They're all there. What is the constraint? What is the constraint is not the weapon system, it's targets. The Americans in Syria are flying about 7 sorties a day. The Russians, on their declaration, over 140. Because the Russians are getting 800 targets a day from the Syrian army. We're getting less than half a dozen, by the sounds of it, from the Free Syrian Army. So if you wanted a practical demonstration of the usefulness in war of the 70,000 that we're told about, you have it there. They're not useful even as targets. What does that give way?
Will he inform the House what his opinion is on the actual bombings in Iraq that are taking place? He's got a very clear view on what we may or may not do in Syria.
I've told him. I've already told him. He can't be listening. The simple truth is that they have not achieved the aim they were set out to do. They are doing some useful things. They're pinning down some people. But by themselves, they cannot achieve what we have been told is their aim, the reduction and removal of ISIS. And that's the failure. That's the failure. So where do we go from here? Now, I'm not going to go into great elaborate detail about the long-term plan. We've had that from a number of colleagues, and I think all the arguments on that have been made very well. And we know the diplomatic creation of the future Syrian state, the creation of the army on the ground. They're all going to be difficult, and they're not going to be very dramatic. But what we can do immediately, and if people are looking for immediate actions, there are a couple of things we can do pretty much straight away. We can demand, not request, demand of Turkey that it shuts the Turkey-Syria border. ISIS has got $1 billion of income from putting oil across that border, and it sends weapons the other way, and it gives freedom of movement to ISIS. Turkey is a NATO member. It should not be giving any sort of comfort to our enemies. Secondly, Saudi and the Gulf states are supposedly our allies. They send tens of millions of pounds as dollars into these Islamist organisations, not just ISIS, also Al-Nusra and the others. The use of this money is essentially to employ soldiers in a country where starvation is always at the door. So that money is incredibly powerful. So if we want to do something straight away, which will do more than several squadrons of aircraft, it's get our allies to do their job. And if I may turn around to the issue that people have raised several times, shouldn't we help the French? Yes, we should help our allies. We should help our allies by destroying ISIS, by doing it properly, not by symbolism.